So we can go beyond human knowledge, imagination, and experience.
Welcome to a brand new episode of our podcast, Human in AI, Minds, Machine, and the Great Descent.
Thanks for tuning in to our geeky podcast, where we discuss the fascinating field of AI and machine learning, corporate craziness, passion for technology, and the role of humans. We are Uli and Abri, your hosts for today.
And we're diving into a topic that's not just timely, but absolutely critical. The powerful synergy between industrial AI and sustainability. We've talked a lot about technology advancements, about geeky stuff, about deep learns, deep nets, of GPTs, LLMs. But often, AI gets overlooked on its potential on real, measurable, maybe change in our quest for a greener, more sustainable world.
And to kick things off, let's ground ourselves with a few compelling facts that help us maybe understand a little bit better how impactful AI is becoming in the space. So everyone is, for instance, talking about AI and the energy consumption. And by optimizing complex processes or using predictive maintenance and managing energy grids more efficiently, AI solutions are already helping industries cut down their energy use by an estimated 10 to 20%, leading to substantial reductions in carbon emissions. At least that's what they say.
Yeah. AI is also a game changer for resource efficiency, minimizing waste, also water usage, right? Working with beer breweries. We are in Bavaria here, right? Actually, 1 liter water, 1 liter beer. How cool would that be? So some of these applications shows potential for AI along the line. And these are just some theoretical, maybe also practical possibilities. There seem to be a lot of, tangible impacts being realized today, are they?
That's for sure. And I guess we should dive a little bit deeper into this topic. And this is why we brought an awesome guest on today, a real expert who's bridging the world of AI, software, and sustainability. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Pina Schlombs, a sustainability lead and industrial AI thought leader at Siemens, to the podcast. Pina, thanks so much for joining our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Pina, before we dive into, deep tech, let's dive into rock and roll. Yeah, you were once crowned the third place, right, on Berlin champion in rock and roll. What was the experience like and what brought you actually, and maybe also what memory brought you to the sport that inspired your professional life here today?
Yeah, I did do rock and roll once upon a time. And it was a super fun experience. I mean, yes, it's dancing, but it's very acrobatic. And we did lots of championships. So
here we go.
Yeah. And I mean, I did rock and roll in championships. And yes, that's where we got third place. But I also did for a much longer time, actually, swimming. I did do championships. And that did teach me a lot about winning and losing, putting in the grind, embracing the suck of training. Okay. Right. So I think that's something that I still carry with me today. Mm-hmm. And especially this feeling before competitions where it's both excitement and a little bit of fear, but like in anticipation of, okay, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be super exhilarating. And there's a clear goal that I'm working towards, which is still going to be painful maybe. Mm-hmm. The way towards it. But this is, if people ask me today, like, are you nervous before this XYZ? It's like, no, it's like this mixture of excitement and fear that I know from competitions. So if you ask me what do I carry from this sports into work today, that would be definitely one thing. Mm-hmm. I actually did then transition to coaching in swimming. And that also taught me a lot about working with people, trying to get the most out of what even that goes beyond what they think they can do with their bodies. And that taught me, it's like, okay, you can get people to go beyond what they feel their bodies or their mind is capable of. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I'm also carrying with me, this, okay, to push your limits also means you have to go to year limits and beyond to progress, right? This is something, I think that's very
is that a nice
applicable
interpretation
today.
of the growth mindset at Siemens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's beautiful how many analogies you actually have from your from that deep passion in sports, from that feeling and before a competition, and that it's actually just an indicator of your body that you will perform now and you're ready to do that, and that still translates today. And you are a leader, actually also a thought leader, in addition to that. And you're in the space of sustainability and industrial AI. And how and when did that actually become your mission? How did you get into that field? That's such a new combination. That's a job probably, I guess, a few years back, it wasn't really a thing, or at least I wasn't so aware of this. So maybe can you walk us a little bit through that journey?
Yeah. So maybe I start with why sustainability, because the industrial AI part does come later. So why sustainability? It really starts with I distinctly remember in school we went to a movie that was called An Inconvenient Truth. I'm not sure, from Al Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was quite
big hyped. Yeah.
Very hyped. Yes, and it had a profound impact on me. I mean, what I distinctly remember is feeling okay, why are people so stupid in destroying our own habitat, right? So this okay, I want to understand not only how the human activities have this profound impact, so why do we do the things we do, and how do they affect the planetary systems? So that first got me into wanting to understand and study physics, to understand how planetary systems work. It's okay, I had enough of an understanding there. Now I want to understand the human-made world. So going into industrial engineering and management and understanding okay, how do complex industries work? How do we get from an idea to an actual product that has a benefit for society? So that's how I got into sustainability and engineering. And yes, then came AI. And from understanding, okay, what are the complexities, the challenges in the world of, okay, how do we transform industry towards sustainability? That was still on the uptake from the later parts of my study, getting hold in the industry itself. But I learned, okay, it's a topic that is super complex, that it's super challenging for organizations that are very much used to operating the way they've always done, right? And having something, a general purpose technology that's super powerful, that unlocks this complexity, enables us to progress with speed that is necessary, because that we have a set timeline behind our climate transition, right? And that's how that sparked my interest in understanding, okay, what can this technology do for our sustainability transition?
How do you see industrial AI actually concretely accelerating and scaling the sustainability transformation? Are there any use cases or stories that you want to share here with us?
Yes, so many, but I'll pick a few that are for me A, highlights, but also B, make it, I hope, relatable in a sense that, the challenge on a macro level with sustainability is that we have a timeline, right, 2030, 2050, when we need to reach net zero. And if we look into the timescales that industries work with, 5 years from now is 2030, that's just a blink of an eye away, right? So I think we all here understand the speed of which large organizations change. So this is basically the field of tension that we have when we look at the sustainability transformation is we have a set timeline and that's not budging, right? That's not changing. It's not something that we're all in the same boat, right? It's also not something that each company defines for themselves. It's something that's set from climate science that we understand what we have in front of us. So that's the time scale. The other part of this equation is that we have existing organizations that have many objectives of what they want to do, right? And optimizing for sustainability, reducing footprints, increasing handprints is just one part of that big equation. So the next part of it that really potentiates the complexity is understanding how all the business objectives that companies have relate to sustainability, right? How does it relate to profitable growth, to ongoing business success while introducing new products, going into new markets, and being under regulatory pressure, having geopolitical shifts, right? All of that, being able to understand how all of those interrelates. Where do you have competing effects? Where do you have synergies? And then, crucially, what kind of capabilities do you need in an organization? And I see the technological capabilities as being one part of that, right? There's people, there's processes, so many more. This is exactly where I see the sweet spot of AI as a technology being, right? Being able to master this complexity and having this multi-objective optimization capability, right? Where we can bring in to relation and manage these interdependencies between all of these objectives, right? And having something where we can not only bring in new understanding and new knowledge, right? We can bring in the expertise of what does sustainability actually mean? What does designing for sustainability mean? What does designing for circularity mean? If we concretely look at the products that we're building, this is something where it really comes into a practical application, right? So I have a product that has a certain complexity and I want to optimize its design to meet my sustainability and circularity goals. Now, you can imagine I have people in my organization, design engineers who are experts in their field, who know the products in and out, who know the production processes in and out. But sustainability and designing for it is a completely new topic. And with AI-driven design software, what we can do today is democratize that expertise, bring it into the systems that the design engineers work with, and empower them to be able to optimize the designs, create completely new designs that work for and optimize not only for things like the carbon footprint, recycled content, but also crucially optimize the lifetime of these products and their circularity. So designing for multiple life cycles, enabling those life cycles through intelligent design.
If you draw a bit of the last years, so 2-3 years maybe, I had the feeling that, many companies, sustainability was a big topic on C-level and executive, right? And company, made somehow bold sustainable goals in there, right? So I was wondering, I had the feeling it came a bit down. So the buzz, right? Technology, AI, agentics, fueled a bit of the dominant, topic on C-level significantly, shifted maybe also the conversation. And I had the feeling that it comes up, right? What are 2 or 3 priorities you would say is, C-suites, are setting right in integrating AI in their agenda? Is there do you see certain kinds of imperatives, how again, AI and sustainability comes together?
Yes, it's absolutely resonates with me, the observation that you have. It's the forefront of conversations on C-level is on what are you doing on AI? What are the... And now it's not, okay, how many pilots do you have? But how much the percentage of productivity increase have you actually realized, right? So what I would definitely say is being very concrete on what is it actually that we want the technology to be able to achieve, right? I think we started off with, we want to do something with that. We understand it's powerful, let's do something with it, right? But successful implementation for me really necessitates being able to have very clear, whether it's KPIs, but what are we working towards? What is it that we want this technology to do for us? What's the value? Then I would definitely say from a how do we bring it into the organization perspective? I think it's definitely a leadership mandate. So top leaders need to lead by example. And that is not only like, okay, once every now and then in a town hall we say like, this is an important topic, but like that everyone feels and sees their leaders using the technology. That creates then, I think, more of a pull rather than, okay, we need to push it into the organization, but creating this pull, okay, from curiosity, what can this technology do for me, right? And I think it, with any new thing, right, it takes champions that show, okay, in this context of our organization, right, understanding and applying it to what we do here every day, this is how it helps us. Then having these successful examples that are shared amongst the organization, and then it's like, okay, this works, right? Of course, you always have this bell curve of the front runners, and right, but you need to have this. You can actually, yes, support this movement, right? And I love actually talking to Katrin Lehmann from Mercedes, who CIO, who's like, okay, I feel her approach is very inspiring, where she said like, okay, the way I do this is in my everyday, in every Teams meeting. Like I have something where I say, okay, have you seen this? Now you can do this. Like now you can like inline transcribe and translate what is being said. Now, well, it's a meeting in German, whatever, but I'm having it transcribed in Chinese, right? I think it's making this tangible, creating this pull. And one thing that I also think is very crucial is go beyond the chatbots, please, right? It's, yes, this is where we start. This is where that becomes day to day, but be ambitious also in what can the technology do that also bridges how we do things today, right? I think we're very used to working in our defined teams, in the silos that establish themselves. And now we have a technology that can bridge that, right?
So stepping up and having more bold ambition levels, what it can do.
Working cross-domain, working cross functions and teams. I think that's using the technology to facilitate that. That's how we can increase the scope.
Hey, one thing is we stumbled over the Reuters report, right? There's a bit of a collaboration between Siemens and Reuters, most recently on the somehow bridging the world of sustainability and energy efficiency cases in industrial AI. I had the feeling that a lot of AI cases and analytics use cases that we do hasn't changed much, right? But the narrative around it and the calculation, how do you determine now an ROI for this and return on invest has changed towards the sustainability ambitions and the level. Can you resonate on that?
Absolutely. And I think it's something where, I mean, especially in whether it's energy efficiency, resource efficiency, those are not new topics, right? But the motivation, I think, has diversified, right? So I think that we set out purely on, or mainly on, cost incentives, right? But now we're looking into, okay, well, this actually has also an upside for sustainability, which we maybe never looked at, right? But now we have the ability to kill two birds with one stone here, right? This is exactly where I think prime example where we have synergetic effects between multiple optimization criteria, right? So you're optimizing for cost by looking at energy and resources, but at the same time, that pays into the environmental impacts that these processes, the process that are behind that lie, right? And if you ask me, okay, so what's changed now with AI in this equation? Well, from what we were able to do yesterday and the speed at what we were able to do, that's just potentiated, right? So our ability to, I mean, think of a production plant that has multiple lines with tens of machines, right? Robots, whatever, milling machines in sequence. each feeding you thousands of data points near real time, hopefully. Now, in the past, like we would have been at a break point in our ability to actually make sense of those data, right? I think today we say like industry has tons of data, but like 80% of it is not used because we did not have the capability to analyze, make sense, and deduct actions from it, right? So I think that's changed.
Okay.
And one example that we also have in the report is actually where we looked at, okay, now if we are in one of these production lines that has these big robots, what actually drives not only looking at this one robot, but what is the system that this robot sits in, right? And how does it interact with the rest of the system? So having this system of systems view and approach. And if you take that approach, what becomes clear is you can identify, okay, within this whole system, what actually drives the impact? What drives the energy? You can have a full digital twin of not only this one robot, but the complete line and the energy and resource curves that it produces. And from that, we were able to see, okay, well, this is actually where it usually creates peaks in energy load. Now, this creates a huge strain on the full energy system of the whole plant. Blah, blah. So it has this cascading effects. Now, I think the second and third order effects is something that we were not even able to see before, right? Just because we were not able to process, analyze all the data that we might have, ideally, right? But then making sense of the data, feeding it back into what are the concrete actions that we can take based on this data to improve for cost reasons, right? For energy, for sustainability reasons, what we can do specifically.
And it's pretty exciting, right? That suddenly we have the power to really dive into those intricacies and to really understand the systems and how they interact with one another and to actually make sense of the data without being completely overwhelmed. And that also unleashes a bunch of possibilities, right? And you already touched upon like some use cases and some insights on the report. And like some others that we read into was that, for instance, 63% of organizations are actually moving beyond pilots, which is pretty interesting. Or like the energy and CO2 savings that you also touched upon. Was there something that really surprised you or like really stood out for you, or any like other like use case that you want to highlight here?
Yeah. So I think what the stats that you just shared tell me is that we're really at this inflection point where it's companies today are at the point where they have moved beyond this experimental phase of really having it integrated into daily operations. Right? I think this is really something that we wouldn't have been able to say last year. So we already did this report in the second year, and this is the big change that I see from that stat. The other stat that I think is super interesting and surprising to me is that 40% of the respondents actually said that they see positive impacts from applying industrial AI to sustainability use cases already today. But within the next 3 years, that number moved up to 70%. So 70% of respondents said they expect to see positive impacts from applying industrial AI for sustainability in what they do. And I mean, had you asked me like last year or maybe the year before, like just posing this question, I would get so much pushback, like, well, AI is the worst thing that ever happened for sustainability, right? It's consuming so much energy, and how can you even say that this is something that moves us forwards and when we look at for sustainability? So I think those are the two highlights that I see from the respondents of the report.
And it's interesting to see if you look on the use cases as well, right? So all the the traditional aspects seem to be, because you asked 200 senior company executives, right? And they pulled quite big actually on, that the role and the impact of supply chain optimization for sustainability, the role of energy management in buildings, the role of quality control, the role of real-time decision making, the role of process optimization, energy, sustainability impact assessment. So, all these...
Only you dove deep into that report.
all
There's
these,
lots in it.
all these stuff, right? Where we now have a bit of the databases in there, right? And in terms of the transparency, right? And everybody was asking, but transparency doesn't give me the value, and now you can somehow bridge the world to an ROI towards making a business case out of AI and sustain. I think that's quite cool to see that this
very, very good point that you're making there. It's like, of course, the first thing that we always think of, okay, well, creating transparency, which is, we must say, actually the crucial first step, right? What you can't measure, you can't improve, we all know that. But exactly as you shared, there's so many areas of application where we can, right, go beyond just in inverted commerce, having transparency. So understanding and also going beyond, okay, being able to understand what's happening now and going into this predictive capabilities. That's, for me, I think, something that we're maybe just at the cusp of, right? For, as you say, supply chains, I think a classical example that I see, lots of organizations looking into, okay, especially from the perspective of sustainability, I'm looking at new suppliers. I want to source maybe new materials, right? I don't know, bio-based plastics. The big question is, well, that's all well and good and fancy, but can I source it from which suppliers? Can I get it in the quality, the quantity, and at which cost, right, over the next X years? And that's a beautiful use case for the predictive qualities of AI, right? This is something where AI systems can look at, okay, what is the demand and supply development looking like? Infer from that, what are the curves that we can expect to see with a degree of certainty, what the price points are going to be, what the development is going to be, then also what are green premiums maybe going to look like, right? What is a carbon tax going to look like? All these dimensions you can bring into one equation that supports your decision making. So I think it's this foresight capability this is one use case, right? You can look at grids. You mentioned energy and production or buildings, right? Being able to predict occupancy rises and shifts. How does it relate to weather patterns, availability of renewable energies, their fluctuation? So lots of moving parts, right? That we can put into one observation to make the right decisions for sustainability from it.
That's very powerful, and it's nice how you're like really connecting the dots here as well. I want to give you another dot as well, which is digital twin technology. And you already touched a little bit upon it. But if you combine digital twin technology with like AI or a robust industrial software as such, that's gaining more and more traction. And do you have maybe another example of where you see that through digital twins that we are really like driving the impact in our sustainability movement in a substantial way? Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I mean, yes, for digital twins might be something that we've been talking about for lots of years, right? So the question is, how does AI now, what does AI bring as when we look at digital twins? And for me, I think the most exciting part here is that if I take the example of product engineering, now having representations of what we are designing in the digital world, which basically is what digital twins are, this allows us a huge degree of freedom in exploring the design space that we have. Now, historically, of course, design teams have been very focused in their expertise. So you have lots of teams that have specific expertise for mechanical design, electronics, software, simulation people, requirements management, all kinds of different domain expertise. And yes, they all work with the same digital twin technology underlying it, but what AI brings into this equation is that the ability to not only explore a much bigger design space, right? Simply because we have the capabilities to, again, run through lots of design options, right? Being able to explore, okay, we have lots of criteria that we're designing for, but what is actually the optimal fit that meets not only our sustainability criteria, right? And even those can be multifold, right? Here at Siemens, we have like 13 robust eco-design criteria that we're designing our products for. Think of now your customers have their requirements. There are regulatory requirements. You want to meet price points, performance, quality, right? All of that at the same time and in concert with each other. So if I have to like boil it down, it's like really this multi-objective mastery that AI brings in. And crucially, and I think that's for me one thing that's super exciting when we now move into agentic systems where we have multi-agent teams creating completely new products, right? And think of you have an idea for something that brings a specific value for you. Think of, okay, you give the agent team simply, this is what I want as a result, that something that is able to do X.
Objective, like in a sense, yeah?
Correct. Now, with engineering agents working in a team that have all the expertise that you need, like from simulation, from systems engineering, from mechanical design, electronic, software, etc., they bring all of that in. Now you have an agent that also has sustainability expertise in that equation. And you can create completely new designs, right? That not only allow for products and the life cycle to meet the performance goals that you want, but also crucially have the ability to run through, to model, to optimize for multiple life cycles of said product, right? And in doing so, go beyond what the human teams maybe have as knowledge and experience, which today is really the limit of what is possible, right? So we no longer have that bottleneck of what the design engineering team that we have today has as, this is how we usually, the materials I work with, I know this works. These are the manufacturing processes I work with, I know this works. But maybe there's more. Maybe we can create materials that meet these requirements, right? Even that is something that generative material processes now are able to do, right? So we can go beyond human knowledge, imagination, and experience.
Yeah, that's I think the pretty dope stuff. But Pina, what does it do to human then, right? Oh my gosh! It was my expertise, right, in doing 4,000 parameters, knowing this for many years, right?
Yeah.
And people approached me. I went in this, I work in this lab for 10 years, and people approached me, so like, cool, you have a source of knowledge and expertise, and now you tell me systems will take over that. How do you take somehow, right, in terms of a bit of these kinds of strategic aspects in embracing this as a positive tool, right, in an organization? Can you share a bit of the role of the human side of such a transformation?
Yes, of course. And I must say it's I think the two sides of the coin, right? We're so excited by the power of the technology, but on the other side, it's like, okay, now what do I do, right? And I think it's yes, this might be like a first gut feeling and reaction, but I think if we actually see what this also frees us from, right, the friction, the constraints that we are today simply bound by and constricted by, simply because we have a limited capacity and what each of us can do and the knowledge and experience that each of us has. And now I think it's more of where we are connecting that, right, on a broader scale. We are able to collaborate cross-domain. And we are simply, from my perspective, working on a more strategic and level, defining and stating the hypothesis, the problems that we now have systems that solve for them, right? That, as you say, Aubrey, have the capability to tap into so much more knowledge that the full world basically has today, right? So I think we are able to, we're, let's say, moving up in the food chain of knowledge work, I would say, to a more strategic node. And by embracing the technology and the power it has, are able to do much more, solve much more complex problems much faster, right? And scale that also. I think that's something that we also need to crucially consider here. It's something that this technology, once applied throughout an organization, scales instantly, right? It's something that is much harder and much more cumbersome and much more time-consuming to do in a classical setup, right? Once we have these kinds of capabilities integrated into the systems, into the backbone of technology, of what drives and powers organizations, it's also so instantly scalable.
So Pina, we talked a lot about the bright side, right? But AI and sustainability, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And we all know that AI is very hungry for resources, for energy. And we see that like one data center after the other is being built and they need so much energy for cooling. And if we really make ourselves honest, what is your view on making AI itself more sustainable? Are small language models or clever designs the answer, or how do you see that story?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that's, I think the part of the equation that's much more looked at, thankfully. I think that's very important part of the equation to be looked at, right? And I always try to differentiate between the sustainability of AI, which is basically what you're describing, right? What is the environmental impact of the AI tech stack? And I think it's also crucial to look at the full AI tech stack. And then the next part is what we've been talking about till now, is like, how can we apply AI-driven software systems for sustainability, right? But coming to your question, so how do I see it? It's the first thing that I would say is that, yes, it is super, not only energy, but also water intense, right? Also a lot of critical resources that go into the hardware part of the AI tech stack, right? So also not to overlook. For me, that is an investment that we're currently doing, right? So I think we also need to differentiate between what is the investment that we need to do to be able to train and get the technology to a maturity that it actually creates the value that we want it to have. And then looking at what's the inference, or what is the usage of running and applying AI, what is that part of the equation? So absolutely, I think looking into what kind of language models do we need? Do we need large language models for everything? Basically right sizing for the area of application that we're looking at. I think we're just at the very beginning of understanding where do we actually need what kind of AI system, right? It's, I think, more of brute force approach that we currently have. So let's see what's possible, which I think is absolutely valid because we're, again, in a learning curve here. But that is definitely a big part of the equation. Then looking into the architecture, the infrastructure, what's the infra look like? What can we do there? And I think data centers, absolutely. I think that's a big part of what's also developing is like, how do we plan these data centers? Where do we put them? How do we design them? And even like going into, again, here, applying AI-driven software for the planning, simulation, and optimizing for instance, for the thermodynamics, for the cooling systems. We have a great example from Greenergy data centers in Iceland, who were able to achieve a 30% reduction in their energy use by having a digital twin of the full data center, simulating the whole thermodynamics and optimizing the whole cooling system.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's often, maybe that's not like magic, right? I mean, that's something that we were able to do before, but applying all the powers that we have, the technology that we have, also to these kinds of questions. So lots happening. I think the material side, you said, like chip design is again something that's evolving rapidly. So I think on every level of the tech stack, there's so much happening. How efficient are the models that we run, the applications that draw on the models? So I think we can look at every layer of the tech stack, and crucially for me is like look at how it's developing over time. So I think that's something that we see.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you say, like, don't reduce the model. So one narrative was like, I don't know, 1 year ago, like say we need to stop building larger models because they consume too much energy or resources. Would you say we should stop and not building the agentic systems?
No.
Okay.
I think we should understand what they're able to do and apply them to valuable use cases. But that's the thing for me. Is like, it's not just something, an end in itself, having AI. It's a powerful technology that we need to find and apply it to valuable outcomes, right? So make the investment count is what I'm saying, right? Having large language models, yes, now we create cat videos. Well, I'm not sure what
Studio Ghibli
benefit
style photos.
Yeah, and I mean, is that the big benefit for society? Well, it's certainly entertaining. Is it moving us forward in terms of our sustainability transition? I don't think so. So, right, that's why I say look at the full equation. Yes, there's a footprint of AI, but it can create a huge handprint. And there's tons of examples that we have in the report, actually, where we show that the invest that was needed for this AI system is far smaller than the benefits we were able to create when we apply it, right, at a certain scale. And I think that part of the equation, to be honest, I would love for us to look much more closely at and focus on that. How can we make the investment count? How can we make this technology work for us, for good, for sustainability? Right. So it's quite a super interesting position to be in, which maybe we're not even seeing all of the big picture when we look at it day to day.
Yeah, it seems like we have all the puzzle pieces. Yeah. And Pina, we just got to the end of this puzzle today, and one of the last questions or last puzzle pieces is our question for some advice from you. Like the conversation up to now was like already super inspiring and eye-opening, and you really helped us put things into perspective and really kept on stressing that importance of using AI responsibly, and that in if you do so, that it can like truly create that massive impact. So maybe for our listeners out there, and those might be engineers or business leaders, or they might be just starting out now. What is a piece of advice you would offer to anyone wanting to build and scale impactful AI solutions that truly benefit our people and the planet?
Yeah.
Easy one, right?
Easy peasy. So I think one thing that I would definitely say, and this ties into the rapid development of the technology, is that think of not only what is possible with AI today, but crucially look at where it's heading, right? And look at what are the patterns of development that you see, and aim for 2-3 years into the future, right? Especially, I think, coming or operating in enterprise organizations, be mindful that you have a certain complexity, but aim for the development of the technology and what is likely to be capable of in 2-3 years' time, right? Because I think if you start today with a project, just setting out from what it's able to do today, you will, at the end of the project, fall short of what you would have been able to achieve had you had invested in looking into the future a little and aiming for what will be possible then. So that would be definitely one thing. Don't underestimate the power of what agentic systems are able to do. Don't shy away from going beyond what you already know. Fully tap into that. Be curious. Have the mindset of a scientist more than a manager, I would say. I think that definitely will empower tapping into the full potential of what these systems are able to do. So those would be my top two.
Very valuable advice. And it's not that easy, right? Like to anticipate like how the technology will evolve over the next years and then factor that into your activities. But it's definitely worth thinking about it, or at least like staying on track of that. And there's something else, Pina, that you might have to anticipate in a bit. We have a little game, Authentic Autocomplete, and we prepared a few sentence starters, and we'd love for you to anticipate how they might look completed. So are you ready for this final challenge?
I am ready. Bring it on.
So ready. So that's good. Ready to have some fun. So let me start off with technology with purpose is...
For me, the only technology worth building.
Communication is?
Communication is the exchange of information, and in my context, the translation of technology to sustainable outcomes.
Beautiful. Such a pro, right, Uli? Yeah. Now a more difficult one. My wildest hope for industrial AI in 5 years is... We never had this one.
Yeah, that's a brand new one.
Okay.
Right?
I'm the newbie here. Okay. Definitely, my hope is that we will be able to create AI systems that have true creativity, so that are able to not only infer or extrapolate from how we as humans have done things, and they have learned basically how to copy the ways we have solved problems, but actually have true inventive powers, so that they can create completely novel approaches to maybe problems that we already have today, but crucially also be able to pose the questions that we want answers to formulate the hypotheses, right, that we want them to solve. I think for me, that's definitely an inflection point that I'm so looking forward to. Not that what we have today is not powerful enough, but that's something that I'm definitely
cool. Looking forward. Learning to ask the right questions. Oh, and here's another one. Building systems at scale requires?
It requires humility of the complexity. It requires courage to overcome all the hurdles that you'll face. And it also requires the grit to go the long way.
All right.
That's amazing. And last but not least, because we talked so much about industrial AI and people. So if AI could learn one thing from humans on the shop floor, it should be?
I think that's something that not only relates to the shop floor, but maybe for humans, and I would say also design engineers, anyone. If we could teach it intuition, I think that would be something. I'm not sure how you would actually do this, but I think that's something that humans have this innate capability to, in the spur of the moment, you have a complex situation, right? But you just have this intuition of what to do. I think if we can teach AI systems that would be powerful.
My intuition says This was an awesome podcast, Pina.
I'm glad to hear that.
So thanks so much for joining us here in the lab. Actually, we're sitting in Munich at December-ish. We can tell this, right? Almost close to Christmas, and they seem to be, right? Recording session. So thanks so much for sharing your insights, a bit of the role on software, on AI, on how does it tangible have an impact on sustainability, making very clear and reducing the complexity. So it was truly a highlight for me in December, right? Having the conversation with you together with Aubrey. Thanks so much.
I can only resonate that. Thank you again so much for having me.
Yeah, and folks out there, geeks, AI enthusiasts, sustainability folks, and thought leaders, connect with Pina, on LinkedIn maybe, or share your thoughts on how industrial AI and sustainability can have even greater impact. Let us know what you want to improve, what you hear. Maybe you have a guest we should reach out there. So stay bold, committed, and open-minded, and we hear us at the next Siemens AI Lab podcast. Cheers.